What happens if Burkina Faso's president could get his hands on oil? Well, until now, Burkina Faso was only famous for producing gold, glittering in the ground, yet poverty still wrapped around the people like chains. But now, partnering with Russia, a breaking news has exploded across the world stage. Russia has discovered a staggering 50 billion barrels of oil buried beneath Burkina soil. This news didn't just ripple. It sent shockwaves through every Western capital. From Washington to Paris to London, panicked diplomats and corporations are scrambling to figure out what just slipped from their fingers. Because this isn't just an oil find. This is a seismic shift. But how was this massive reserve found, hidden for so long under Burkina Faso's deserts? Who will really own this newfound black gold, whether the people, the government, or outsiders? And how will it be used, whether to empower a new African powerhouse or fall into the traps that destroyed so many others? And most importantly, how is the West reacting now that one of their former colonies might hold a weapon that could tear their influence apart? In this video, let's find out. For decades, Burkina Faso had been invisible to the world's energy giants. It was a country dismissed in oil industry boardrooms as a wasteland, being too dry, too politically unstable, too isolated to matter. While Western corporations like ExxonMobil, BP, and Shell competed for slices of Nigeria's delta, Angola's offshore riches, or Algeria's desert fields, Burkina Faso remained a forgotten patch on the map. The West saw no gold under the sand, only headaches. But Russia saw it differently. Gazprom, hardened by years of Western sanctions and isolation, understood that survival meant breaking the rules of the old energy order. Instead of competing where Western giants had already entrenched themselves, Moscow pivoted toward Africa's neglected corners. It sent its best geologists, its sharpest energy strategists, and its most advanced satellite imaging teams into places other investors wouldn't even glance at. In Burkina Faso, freshly liberated from France's suffocating grip after Captain Ibrahim Traoré's 2022 revolution, they found a government desperate for true partners, not puppet masters. Without press fanfare, without media leaks, Russian engineers quietly conducted deep seismic surveys beneath Burkina Faso's dusty soil. They didn't just scratch the surface. They penetrated layers untouched for millions of years. And then, hidden beneath ancient sedimentary basins of the Sahel, they struck something no Western corporation had ever thought possible. 50 billion barrels of light, sweet crude, the cleanest, highest-grade oil known to man. It wasn't merely an energy discovery, it was a resurrection. It shattered everything Western economists had smugly predicted about Burkina Faso. It proved that the places written off as barren by the empire's architects were simply places the empire never bothered to truly see. Interestingly, the oil discovery didn't materialize out of nowhere. It was born from a political earthquake that had already turned the old world order upside down. For over half a century, France had treated Burkina Faso not as a sovereign nation, but as a private estate. French corporations controlled its mines, its banks, its communications, while French soldiers were stationed under the pretense of security, all while insurgent groups mysteriously grew stronger instead of weaker. Paris dictated the terms of trade. Paris brokered the contracts. Paris pocketed the wealth, while Burkina children went barefoot on roads that led nowhere. But the arrogance had a breaking point, and that point had a name: Captain Ibrahim Traoré. In 2022, Traoré didn't just stage a coup. He staged a funeral for neo-colonialism in Burkina Faso. With breathtaking speed, he dismantled the structures France had built to keep his people dependent. French military bases, dismantled overnight. French soldiers, escorted to the borders and sent home. Western NGOs operating as political fronts, expelled without apology. Foreign mining companies bleeding the country dry. Contract terms torn up and renegotiated to ensure Burkina ownership. The collapse of French influence was total, not because Paris agreed, but because Traoré made it impossible to resist. The people stood behind him, The army, fed up with broken promises of security assistance, stood behind him. Even the farmers in the Sahel, forgotten by every regime before, cheered him on. Burkina Faso didn't just push France out, it evicted it with righteous fury. And into the vacuum stepped Russia. But unlike France, Russia didn't bring arrogant lectures about democracy. It didn't hide economic domination behind sweet words of development aid. Russia came offering respect, and crucially, real partnership. It wasn't the old colonizer in a new costume. It was the alternative. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. When the oil was discovered, it wasn't Western companies holding the maps. It was Russian engineers, already embedded in Burkina Faso's future. While France gnashed its teeth in silence, Russia was sitting at the head of the table, not as a master, but as a guest welcomed by a sovereign host. Burkina Faso had not merely replaced one empire with another, it had flipped the entire table. And what the West still refuses to understand is this. Burkina Faso isn't an isolated story. It's the spark of a wider African awakening, one where the ghosts of empire are being buried for good, and the wealth of the soil is finally being claimed by those who were meant to own it all along. However, Burkina Faso's oil discovery could have easily fallen into the familiar nightmare, the curse of black gold that has haunted so many African nations. In Nigeria, Angola, and Equatorial Guinea, oil became the blood that fueled corruption, coups, and dependency. Wealth pumped from the earth, but poverty seeped into the streets. Foreign companies grew rich, the people remained poor. The West called it bad governance, but ignored that the system was designed that way from the start, for Africa to produce and others to profit. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré is no ordinary leader, and this is no ordinary oil discovery. From day one, Traoré made it clear, Burkina Faso will not allow the pattern to repeat. Instead of exporting crude at dirt-cheap prices and waiting for foreign donors to help, Traoré's government is laying the foundation for something radical, full-spectrum national development, powered by Burkinabe hands. Plans are already underway for domestic oil refineries, including massive industrial complexes, where Burkinabe engineers will refine their own crude into gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. No more shipping out raw resources for pennies, only to buy them back at 100 times the price. Even more ambitious is the creation of industrial corridors like superhighways, railroads, and logistics hubs linking Burkina Faso to Mali, Niger, Ghana, and Côte d'Ivoire. No longer landlocked, the country will become land-linked, the crossroads of a new African economy. The oil wealth won't just fund refineries. It will build energy-powered cities, where solar grids meet petroleum power, where young Burkinabe innovators will launch startups, instead of risking their lives migrating across deserts. Traoré envisions a modern economy born not from foreign charity, but from African sovereignty. And most crucially, ownership stays local. New technical schools are training Burkinabe youth not just in drilling and refining, but in building, maintaining, and expanding the infrastructure themselves. This isn't about waiting for outsiders to bring technology. It's about mastering it with African minds. And this is threatening the West. Behind closed doors in Paris, Washington, and Brussels, alarm bells are ringing. Not because they suddenly care about Burkina Faso, but because they finally realize they can't control it anymore. This oil is more than barrels in the ground. It is Burkina Faso's declaration of independence, not just from France, not just from the IMF, but from the entire global system that kept Africa chained for centuries. Without IMF loans and World Bank conditions, Burkina Faso can chart its own economic course. Without European intermediaries, it can negotiate deals on equal terms with nations it chooses, whether Russia, China, Turkey, or fellow African states. And the fear is not isolated to Burkina Faso. If one country can succeed in breaking the chains, others will follow. Mali, Niger, Chad, Guinea, the entire Sahel could ignite with the flame of true self-determination. The West's true nightmare is a continent that refuses to kneel. Thus, the dirty playbook is already being dusted off. Propaganda campaigns label Traoré a dictator to prepare the ground for sanctions or intervention. Whispers of coup swirl, hoping to replicate past betrayals that toppled Sankara and Lumumba. Economic sabotage efforts quietly escalate, attempting to stifle investment, weaponize NGOs, and create artificial crises. They believe that with enough pressure, they can fracture this new African awakening before it spreads. But this time, Africa is watching, and Africa has learned. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Bamako to Brazzaville, a new generation stands ready, and their message is simple. Touch Traoré, and you touch all of us. The discovery of 50 billion barrels beneath Burkina Faso is not just a fluke of geology. It is the breaking of a spell, the collapse of a century-old lie. For too long, the world told Africa that it was poor, that it was weak, that it must accept help in the form of debt, exploitation, and endless submission. But in the red dust of the Sahel, a new truth is rising. Africa was never poor. Africa was robbed. And now, Africa is taking it back. Burkina Faso's path won't be easy. No revolution of dignity ever is. The enemies, both internal and external, are powerful, desperate, and ruthless. Sabotage will come. Betrayals will come. Dark nights will fall. But the difference now is who owns the morning. For the first time in generations, Burkinabe youth, workers, farmers, and builders are walking a road that is truly their own. Not paved by foreign contractors, not mapped by distant bureaucrats, built by their own calloused, brilliant, unstoppable hands. And if the old colonial powers believe they can derail this movement with coups, lies, or secret deals, they are about to learn a brutal lesson that they can assassinate a leader, destroy a government, but cannot kill a generation that has decided to be free. Burkina Faso is not just drilling for oil. It is drilling into the very bedrock of global injustice and setting off tremors that will shake empires. The new Africa is rising, and it's just getting started. Do you believe Burkina Faso can finally break free from centuries of exploitation and control? Or will the West try to sabotage its future once again? If Burkina Faso succeeds with Russia's help, do you think it will spark a full-blown revolution across Africa against Western dominance? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on what, if you had the chance, would you build first in Burkina Faso using its new oil wealth: schools, hospitals, tech hubs, or military defenses? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.